Ayun. How about this one? Meron ba rin? Okay, then I don't have any choice but to... Yeah. Is that it? There you go. How about this one? There. Is this better? Okay na. Alright. Alright, let's start over. Today we're going to discuss about treason and inciting to sedition. And we will include in this Article 154, which is unlawful publication. So why are we doing that? Well, very recently, Senator Trillanes went to the U.S. and he met with some senators in the U.S. According to some of these senators are known for supposedly, allegedly toppling regimes. And that is something certainly for us to be concerned about. Okay. In the meantime, one of the questions that I keep getting, parati ko naririnig, parating nasa sa wall ko na hindi ko na rin sinasagot, ay ano bang pwedeng ikaso dito kay Trillanes? Okay, first of all, let's explain something. Good evening to everybody. I want to explain something. We do not file cases against people just because we don't like them. Okay, that's not how it works, and that's not how we're going to do this. And even the president has told us he is not going to do that. In fact, for the longest time, mahaba ang pasensya niya. Remember, before Senator De Lima was charged with anything, the president just kept saying, it's all right, you can let her talk. Okay? The same holds true with any other public figure. The same holds true with everybody else. Why? Because the president and our laws, the president is a lawyer and he is aware that one of the most important freedoms that we have is the freedom of speech. Okay? And that speech includes the kind of speech that you do not want to hear. It includes the kind of speech that you disagree with. The freedom of speech even covers, people lying. Why? Because literature is essentially lying, diba? We need to be free to speak our minds. Now, there are exceptions to that. The freedom of speech comes with limitations. And these limitations are very specifically stated in the law. But, as we have said earlier, even the president says this, you do not try to fix a political problem by filing cases against your enemies. You do not take revenge on somebody just because you don't like him, just because he disagrees with your politics. We file cases because that person has violated the law. Okay? For no other reason. You might feel happy when certain people go to jail. I certainly felt relieved when Senator De Lima went to jail. And of course, Thinking Pinoy said, masaya kaming nakakulong siya, which expressed a lot of our sentiments. But that is not the reason why why cases are filed. Okay, we don't file just because you don't like somebody's face or you don't like somebody's speech. Okay, the lack of liking the speech is not a reason to file a case. Please remember this because the president himself also says this. No matter how high your passions rise, no matter how angry we can be about somebody else, freedom of speech is something to respect. Okay, however, as I mentioned, there are limitations to the freedom of speech. One is libel. If you make a malicious imputation of a crime, vice, or defect, that is libel, and therefore, you can be sued. And in fact, under Republic Act 10951, the penalties for libel have been increased. Okay? We'll not talk yet about CIA and all of that because we want to talk about hard facts here. Okay? You know why? Because you cannot take to court a rumor. You cannot take to court innuendo, and you cannot take to court your conspiracy theories. Now, you have to be patient with me because we're going to deal with things that we can actually file hard facts. Okay? For the moment, I understand that you're angry, and I understand that there's so many things to think about. But let's deal only first with the hard facts. before we do that, go ahead and please start sharing so that we don't have to keep repeating and we can answer a lot more questions. Okay? Sige. So, number one, a lot of people, a lot of you are always mentioning the word treason. Now, isn't what Trillanes did treason? Isn't that, everybody keeps using the word treason. However, treason is very specific in the law. Okay? And one of the most important things about treason is this, that it happens only during wartime. Okay? Why is that? Because first, how do you define treason? In the Revised Penal Code, it says, any person owing allegiance to the Philippine, well, it's the original wording is the government of the Philippine Islands. Not being a foreigner, although a foreigner can commit treason if there is loyalty. We'll discuss that later. Not being a foreigner, levies war against them, which means this government levies war against the Philippines or adheres to its enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the Philippine Islands or elsewhere, shall be punished by. Okay. So what does this mean? It means, first, Philippine citizens or any person who owes allegiance to the Philippines. Levies war, wages war. Ibig sabihin, you join with the enemies of the Philippines. So during World War II, those who sided with the Japanese are considered to have committed treason. Okay? So, when there is no war, there is no enemy, so to speak, the kind of enemy that is considered in the crime of treason. Kumbaga, what is being punished here are the traitorous acts. You can't be a traitor, according to the Supreme Court, unless there is war. Although you can commit acts that are deemed treasonous or traitorous, unless there is war. And, war is very specific. Normally, in this country, it will take an act of Congress to declare a war. So, you can't use the war on drugs, okay? The conflict in Marawi was an act of terrorism. It is not done by a foreign state, even if ISIS claims to be a foreign state. This is terrorism, okay? So, that's not a war, right? So, there is no treason here. There is no treason today. Okay. However, dami nang nagalit, no? When I mentioned that treason can only happen during wartime. And so all of suddenly I was getting a lot of people really impatient with me saying, hindi, iba naman kasi yung definition nyo. Excuse me, the definition that I'm using is the Revised Penal Code, which means you can't accuse a person of treason then use a Webster's dictionary. You'll have to use what is written in the law in order to use the law against this person. Diba? So, hindi kayo magagalit sa akin when I say things that you don't like because, diba, yun yung freedom of speech, even the ideas that you don't agree with. However, in this case, what I'm giving you is a fact. You cannot punish a treasonous act because we're not at war. Okay? No, the conflict in Marawi is not a war. Okay? A war is between two states and it is declared by Congress. Please do not ask about espionage. Okay, that's fine. Sige, let's discuss espionage. Espionage is, and this is how it's defined in the law, okay? Any person who, without authority, enters a warship, a fort, naval or military establishment or reservation to obtain information, plans, photographs, or other data of a confidential nature relative to the defense of the Philippine archipelago. Okay, does this sound familiar? Do you know anybody who did this? No. So remember, this person enters usually into a military facility. And the purpose of entering that military facility is to obtain plans, photographs, or anything of a confidential nature that could leave the Philippine government's defense, the defense of this country, vulnerable. Okay? That's no. The second definition of espionage is any person who is in possession by reason of his public office, etc., of articles, data, or information pertaining to the defense of the country, and then he discloses it to a representative of a foreign nation. Okay? Wala pa rin. Alright? So that's the definition of espionage. It always relates to information pertaining to the